What are we discussing on today's podcast, you ask? Well, we got to discuss that almost D-backs come back in game 3 against the Philadelphia Phillies. Then discuss, can Arizona tie it up in game 4 and split the series? And then on the YouTube, there will be a part 2 where Javi and I discuss and predict the next batch of MLB Power Rankings that Locked On provides. So the audio listeners will hear all 3 segments. The YouTube audience, you will hear the first 2 segments and then go to the YouTube page for the third segment, all on today's Locked On Diamondbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Diamondbacks, your daily Arizona Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. A championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. Same with your vehicle. So for parts that fit, head to eBay Motors and look for the green check. Stay in the game with eBay Guaranteed Fit. ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available for U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. I'm Millard Thomas, host of this wonderful podcast. I'm a multimedia journalist and I'm a graphic designer, so please go check out my website, millardthomas24.myportfolio.com. On there, you can see all my latest work, from my packages to my articles to my photos and my graphic design. If you want to see more content by me, just follow me on Twitter at CreatorThomas24 for my personal account, or just look up Locked On Diamondbacks about Twitter, Instagram for the podcast handle. And of course, thank you for making Locked On Diamondbacks your first listen every day. I would not be able to do this podcast without you, my loyal listeners, sharing, subscribing, reviewing, doing all that so I could do this podcast for you. Thank you. It's free and available on all platforms, so please continue to tell your friends. But now let's discuss this D-backs game 3 loss to the Philadelphia Phillies. I'm not sure if I called it victory earlier in the podcast, but the D-backs lost 4-3 to the Phillies in extra innings, and this was a bittersweet game. This was a little bit sweet because I did go with a few of my coworkers. Shout out Gary Berry for hooking it up with tickets. So it was fun to go watch the game with the boys and pound a few brewskis and watch my boys on the field, swing the bat and throw some pitches. But unfortunately, the D-backs were not able to get it done. And they have now lost the second game in a 4-game set to the Philadelphia Phillies. And another reason why it kind of hurts, not just because I want to see the D-backs thrive and prosper, of course, but because I kind of got a personal bet with one of my friends back home in Jersey who's a Philadelphia Phillies fan. I bet him that the D-backs were going to win this series. I also just bet them straight up the D-backs money line in game 2 and game 3. I did double or nothing for game 3. I came away with nothing because I have to give him double the money that we originally wagered now. So this D-backs team is not only hurting my feelings and my emotions, but they are now hurting my pockets. And when you look at this game, it was kind of weird because Merrill Kelly had a pretty unorthodox box score by his standards because he went 6 innings, right? That's not weird for Merrill Kelly. We know Merrill Kelly is a workhorse. He had 7 strikeouts. That's a pretty good Merrill Kelly day. I mean, he's having a career season in terms of strikeouts per 9. He threw 102 pitches. We don't always see him, even though he's a workhorse. Torey Lovullo doesn't love his pitchers throwing over 100. So you got the 7 Ks for Merrill Kelly, which is a pretty good number. You got over 100 pitches, which you don't usually see. He only gave up 3 hits, which is pretty nice as well. But the 3 earned runs, the 4 walks, and the 1 home run allowed, really where this game was lost from Merrill Kelly from a pitching standpoint, it wasn't the amount of hits he gave up. It was when and the kind of hits he gave up, because he gave up a leadoff triple, which led to a run. He gave up a leadoff double, which led to a run. And then he gave up a home run. So he only gave up 3 important hits, but they were all extra base hits. He almost gave up the cycle in his first 4 hits that he allowed in this game. He only allowed 3, but if he allowed a 4th hit and it was a single, he would have given up a cycle on just 4 hits, which would have been crazy. So it's Merrill Kelly, I don't even think was bad in this game. I do think that second earned run he gave up, I think if Nick Ahmed charged the ball, the D-backs had a chance of not giving up that second earned run. But what can you do? Nick Ahmed is a pretty great defensive player. And we even saw that one play where he had that ground ball, hits a little divot in the dirt, it skips up, and he just bare hands it, throws it over to first. And also with Christian Walker over at first base, like you just throw it anywhere in that vicinity. He's a big polar bear. He's going to catch it and knock it down. And the defense was kind of a big reason why the D-backs didn't win tonight, because in extra innings in the top of the 10th, Scott McGough, who was pitching really well in this game, gives up a little pop fly to right field. You're like, all right, there's already one out. This is going to be the second out of the inning. You're going to keep that runner on second because of the rule, of course. We start on second extra inning. Like, he's going to stay right there. And of course, it was Trey Turner on second base. So you had the fastest player, one of the fastest players in baseball already starting at second. And it looked like McGough was going to start off with back-to-back outs and just really put the D-backs in a strong position to win the game. And instead, McCarthy, I don't even know who he collided with. I think it might have been like Ketel Marte or Perdomo. And they just collide on an easy pop-up, miscommunication. Turner goes to third. Whoever was at the plate goes to second base. And then Castellanos comes up, sacrifice fly. And that gives the Phillies the 4-3 lead. And the D-backs in the bottom of the 10th, I really wanted Corbin Carroll to walk it off. It would have been the most perfect narrative. Carroll off the bench. We were all standing up, chanting MVP for Corbin Carroll. Unfortunately, he couldn't come through, but I don't blame him. You did get a great performance from Christian Walker, who did hit a super clutch home run in the 8th inning, because the D-backs offensively were like dead in the water for all this game. Like, that's been kind of the sad part about this D-backs Phillies series. Like, outside game one, the D-backs the last two games haven't exactly brought it offensively. It's been the Phillies going after this D-backs pitching early and often, and maybe the D-backs respond a little bit later in the game. Maybe they chip away a little bit, but they haven't been able to make that full comeback. They were at least able to tie it in this game with a Christian Walker home run. One of my buddies I was with called it. He called it before the inning, so I got to give a shout out to him. But the home run was cool to tie it, but the D-backs weren't able to complete the victory. We know they're the answer backs. They did answer when they were down 3-0, but they weren't able to finish the test. And unfortunately, the D-backs take the loss. Now they're 41-27, which is still a phenomenal record on the season. Nothing to be ashamed about. But I would have really enjoyed a D-backs come from behind victory, a D-backs walk-off where Corbin Carroll is the one putting the cherry on top. That would have been really nice. A couple gripes that I might have had with the game, I don't know. I think like Carson Kelly, when the game was this close, he had a couple at bats later in the game where I'm like, I don't care if Moreno's a righty too. Just put Moreno as a pinch hitter for Carson Kelly, because Carson Kelly right now at the plate, like, it just feels like he hits dribbler after dribbler. Same with Nick Ahmed. Nick Ahmed has had moments earlier in the year where he comes through and has been real clutch, but you look at his offensive stats right now, he just hasn't been good. And the D-backs had an opportunity later in that game when Nick Ahmed was at the plate, and he didn't come through, and I wasn't that surprised. Yeah, after that Christian Walker home run, you had Marte on first, Evan Longoria on second. So you did have like another runner in scoring position. Of course, 2 outs. Rojas was running for Evan Longoria, so you at least had some speed on the bases. And Nick Ahmed grounded into a fielder's choice, and I wasn't very surprised they did that. I mean, in the end, it kind of all worked out. Even though the D-backs didn't win, you kind of had the perfect opportunity where you had Corbin Carroll up at the plate. But I don't know. Even though when there's a lefty on the mound, I know that's why Nick Ahmed stayed in the game. But would I rather have Nick Ahmed with the righty versus lefty matchup, or just put the hottest player in baseball and Corbin Carroll in the game to go lefty versus lefty? I think I would have still won Corbin Carroll, even though in the end you did get Corbin Carroll at the plate with 2 outs, so walk it off. That's kind of like the perfect scenario that you want, but it would have been kind of cool to see Corbin Carroll come in a little bit earlier in the game, or Marte or Gabriel Moreno. Like, literally, once you got to the 7th, 8th inning and it was still Carson Kelly and Nick Ahmed getting big at bats in a close ball game, I was like, all right, let's maybe pinch hit these guys for someone that can actually put the ball in play. And Torey Lovullo didn't. In the end, I don't think that's what costed him this game. I do think what costed the D-backs this game was that defensive miscue in the top of the 10th where Jake McCarthy, that other player, just ran into each other, because I think the D-backs, I mean, I don't know if they win the game, but they at least go to the 11th inning if that play doesn't happen. I really, truly feel that. So D-backs kind of squandered this game, but it was exciting. It was fun. I was in the building, and I still had a great time. Now let's talk about if the D-backs can split the series and win game 4. Before we get there, though, I want to talk to you guys about Bird Dogs. And let me get my little overlay on for the YouTube audience because, come on, Bird Dogs, why are you not popping up? Whoa, there you go. It was delayed for a second. Okay, bird dogs. The reason why I love them is because bird dogs make you look good. Bird dogs stretch khaki shorts are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg, giving you a truly sculpted look. Bird dog shorts do the exact same thing as Lululemons, but fit way better. They fit way better than regular shorts that are made of stiff, restricting cotton. Bird dogs fix that issue by inventing cloud knit fabric that looks just like khaki but stretches so you get a way slimmer fit without having to sacrifice movement. Bird Dog uses anti-stink sweat wicking fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long. I currently don't have them on, but that's because they're in my laundry, in my dirty hamper basket because I wear them so often. I got 2 pairs of Bird Dog shorts. My absolute favorite thing to put on if I'm going to the gym, if I'm going to the walk, just the grocery store. Like, they're so comfortable and you can wear them for so many different activities. So go to birddogs.com/LockedOnMLB and enter promo code LockedOnMLB for a free Yeti style tumbler with your order. That's birddog.com/LockedOnMLB for a free Yeti style tumbler. You won't want to take your bird dogs off. We promise you. And don't forget to catch every D-backs pitch on their hometown broadcast when you download the Sirius XM app and search up Diamondbacks. All right. Let's get back into the D-backs podcast and discuss if the D-backs can tie up the series in Game 4 because you got Aaron Nola versus Ryan Nelson. And on the surface, you're like, okay, Aaron Nola, stud, one of the best pitchers in baseball. Ryan Nelson, still a youngster. This should be an easy, maybe not an easy one because the D-backs are legit, but this should be a matchup, at least from a pitching standpoint, where Aaron Nola dominates Ryan Nelson. Maybe the D-backs still win because we know the D-backs can out-offense anybody once you get to that bullpen, but you at least look at it from a starting pitching matchup and you're like, big advantage Phillies. But let me give you the quick good and bad on Ryan Nelson because Ryan Nelson, let's start with the good, has already faced the Philadelphia Phillies once this season, and he did it at the Phillies ballpark. So you do like to see that. And for Ryan Nelson against the Phillies in his one start this year, he had 6 innings pitched, 1 earned run, only 3 hits allowed. Like, it was one of the better Ryan Nelson starts all season. 4 strikeouts, no walks. Like, that's the good with Ryan Nelson. We've already seen him against his Phillies team, and we've already seen him dominate once this season against his Phillies team. So if you want the good, can't have much more good than that. He's made like 10 starts this year, one of them against the Phillies. He's made 13 starts this year, one of them against the Phillies, where he gave up no earned runs. And considering Ryan Nelson has a 4.95 ERA, that means he gives up a lot of runs. Now, if you want the bad on Ryan Nelson as to why he can go bad in this matchup against the Phillies, not just because he's Ryan Nelson, a youngster, going against a veteran, pretty star-laden Phillies lineup. Well, Ryan Nelson is not exactly great against left-handed batters. Ryan Nelson against lefties this season, or not just this season, but in his career, he's got a 292 average and an 893 OPS allowed to lefties throughout his career, I believe. Let me just double check and make sure. I'm looking at Ryan Nelson's career splits and not this season splits. Ryan Nelson this season, so those were his splits for his career against lefties. His splits this season against lefties, Ryan Nelson's given up a 330 average and a 996 OPS. Let me say it again because I slipped up a little bit. A 330 average and a 996 OPS allowed to lefties. Ryan Nelson has not been good in that area this year. And when you look at that Phillies lineup, some of the scariest guys in that lineup, Kyle Schwarber, who hits big bombs, lefty, Bryce Harper, 2-time MVP, lefty, and Bryson Stott, who's a pretty darn good youngster. He's a lefty as well. Can even throw Brandon Marsh in there, who's like just a solid veteran. So, like, when you look at that Phillies lineup, some of the best core players that they have in that lineup are lefties. Schwarber and Bryce Harper are true superstars, or at least Bryce Harper is. Schwarber's a star player. All-star level player. Then Bryson Stott looks like he has a potential all-star campaign coming at some point down the line. So You got to be careful if you're Ryan Nelson. The thing when you look at this series, the Phillies offense has been great at going after these D-backs pitchers early. Like in game one, Tommy Henry was getting shelled early in that game. Zach Davies in game two barely made. I don't even think he made it through 4 innings because he was getting tagged up so early. Then Merrill Kelly, I mean, he only gave up 3 earned runs, but they did kind of come early, right, in the second and third inning of the ball game. So this D-back starting pitching has been kind of shaky in this series against the Philadelphia Phillies. And part of that, too, is because this Phillies offense is heating up. Like, we do have to give this Phillies offense credit for playing well. I mean, they do have one of the highest payrolls in baseball. Like, it shouldn't be a surprise that this team is starting to finally play well and hit their stride offensively. Before tonight's game, if you looked at their last 13 games, this offense for the Phillies was batting .291 as a team with over 800 OPS. So this team is definitely hot. And I don't know if Ryan Nelson's the guy to cool this Phillies offense down. Probably not. But if you could get 5 innings and 4 earned runs out of Ryan Nelson, and hopefully this D-backs offense can go off against Aaron Nola, because I haven't even discussed yet how Aaron Nola in his career has been kind of mid against the Arizona Diamondbacks. In 2 starts at Chase Field in his career, he's given up 12 earned runs in 9 innings pitched. And in 4 starts in his entire career against the Arizona Diamondbacks, he's given up 19 earned runs in 20.1 innings pitched. So Aaron Nola in his career has kind of been pretty shaky against the Arizona Diamondbacks. I don't know why exactly. And he's also not having the best season either. So if you combine the fact that Aaron Nola has been struggling this year and he struggled in his career to this D-backs team, hopefully that's enough to suggest that the D-backs can get back on track and at least split the series in game 4. Aaron Nola on the road this year is allowing a 683 OPS, which is nothing crazy, and a 241 batting average. But both of those numbers are slightly higher than what he does at home. He's a better home pitcher than on the road. Those numbers aren't like anything eye-popping, but just shows you he's a little bit more you could attack him a little bit more on the road. And considering his ERA, Aaron Nola, I still think is probably a stud pitcher. He's probably run into some bad luck this year, but considering he has run into bad luck this year, the D-backs have run into a lot of good luck, and they've kind of dominated Aaron Nola throughout his entire career. Hopefully the D-backs can split the series in game 4.